a challenge. So providing support to the SMEs in that regard might help them in a long way to move away from what you described as petty business to small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and even the issue of scale. I don't know if you want me to continue, but I mean, I can stop here and hear what others have to say. But there are also other things I have in mind in terms of even the types of entrepreneurs we have in Nigeria. We did a study recently and we identified 3 types of entrepreneurs. One is what you may call the survivalist. And if you look at the categorization of SMEs in Nigeria, you will find a majority will fall into this bracket of being survivalist. So, somebody loses a job and automatically he or she starts to run a business. Any change in economic policy will affect that company. So every person is at this point in time chasing his or her tail, literally. Then you have the second category, which is about scale and scope. But they're very, very small. They're not major. You have very few of them. And then the last bit is what we call the society-aligned entrepreneurs. And the society-aligned entrepreneurs address societal problems. And in addressing societal problems, they make money. But you have that even in a very small scale. So the point here is, what sort of economy do we want? We have moral survivalists, about 70%. Those that are around the scaling aspect of it might be another 20%. And you have the society aligned, maybe like 10%. That's the kind of pyramid we have. But if you want to build a sustainable economy, a sustainable society in Nigeria, we need to invert that pyramid, whereby the society aligned entrepreneurs will constitute at least 50-60% of entrepreneurial base. And in order to do that, you need quality education and good support system. I should stop here now.
Thank you very much, Professor Amaechi, there for the insight that you have provided. I'm tempted to return to the Honorable Minister, but I want to go to Chris John Mahmuda straight away, whom we earlier introduced. He is a business coach and mentor, and also a business development service provider. I had asked the Honorable Minister to say, look, what is the focus for the 41 or so million MSMEs that we have? And Professor Amaechi, now speaking, of course, says, look, we have to, first of all, have a philosophical orientation towards these MSMEs in the first instance. Straight away, one can say that when you keep hearing the slogans of job creation and wealth creation, the whole idea appears to be just create jobs, just create jobs. But what really is the focus? Are we targeting our MSMEs to be in a position to, one, not just survive, but to be able to scale up their activities and production, and ultimately then become wealth creators in the true sense of businesses?
Thank you very much for this very interesting question. I think that when we started with the SME sector in Nigeria, we had problems of definition. In the previous administration, we had the issue of defining SMEs as small businesses. But later, I think our policy framers discovered that there's need for there's need for a clarity of what are we really defining. So we move from small and medium enterprises to defining it to be micro, small, and medium enterprises. And so the new policy, the current policy that has just been passed, also, like the Honorable Minister has also alluded, we have tried to classify the sector. We have micro businesses that employ like less than 10. Then we have small businesses that have access that are properly formalized. And then we have the larger enterprises. So I think that moving this moving this way, the government has given a clarity as to what we really want to do. But my real concern has always been and will always remain that it is beyond policy. The SME needs specific programs. For instance, we have new policy, like the last policy that has elapsed. Have we evaluated that policy to see what kind of programs and activities that we have brought out of those policies? What are the impacts? What are the gaps? What have we achieved? What are the success stories? I want to say, without trying to praise anybody, I know as a matter of fact, because I belong to the industry, that in the Ministry of Trade and Investment, particularly I've got intelligence report that our Minister of State for Trade and Investment is on the front burner pursuing the issues of SME. Two DGs of the agencies under the ministry have always shared with us how the minister is making sure that the issues of SMEs are escalated and put on the front burner. I was privileged to be in a meeting where the vice president also said, look, the issue of supporting SMEs in this country is not a rocket science. Why have we not got it right? And the simple answer is programs. The programs are not quite sufficient just to finance. A lot of the SMEs cannot manage money. And through the Central Bank of Nigeria, we created the financial literacy training. And we have a national policy on financial inclusion. But to what extent have we implemented that? Because if you look at the principle of credit, you are looking at the credit, you are looking at the character of the person, you are looking at his collateral, you are looking at his competence. That is why we say the 3 C's of credit. So even when the policy was moderated to say that you don't need to give collaterals for you to get access, to get access to funds, the second question is that, do you have the competence to manage money? I always remember as a young person, my uncle would always ask me, you are going to school, how much do you need? And I tell him, I need 10,000. He said, Chris, you can't manage 10,000. So also it is in the real world of business. As in my experience as a business development service provider and also as a Ewing mentor, I have seen people in this country that have been given 10 million naira free by the federal government of Nigeria, and it went down the drain. And what is the question? Is because they cannot manage it. They cannot manage it. So I think that the issue of capacity building, building financial literacy, that if you have 10 million, if you have 50,000, you can make it 1 million. If you have 1 million, you can turn it to 10 million. If you have 10 million, you can produce 1 billion. So we have seen that the problem is not the issue of access to funds. For me, from my experience and practice in this sector and my Nigerian experience, the problem is not access to funds. Because, for instance, would you want to guarantee me to take a loan when you are not sure I have the character? Would you guarantee me to take a loan when you are sure I don't have the competence to manage the money? These are the issues. So until we move away from being too excited and vested about policy to developing critical programs that address specific issues that the policies have identified. For instance, we need specific programs that deal with the issue of how to give capacity for women to manage money. A lot of women are excellent entrepreneurs in this country. But the challenge, for instance, I have a woman who was saving a lot of money to do business, only for her husband to go and take over the money. And it is a problem. I have a problem of youths. They want to make money now. I'm getting disappointed about Nigerian youths, with the greatest respect. Even my children, I talk to them. My son was telling me, say, Daddy, you are still analog. I told them, this is not the way to go. If you want to make money, you have to build it gradually and sustainably. And then when you talk about skills, we also need to look at the skills. We need to reevaluate. With the greatest respect, I think ITF is doing very well. And I think we need to work hard to support ITF in terms of skills. But it is not enough, like the minister has also pointed out. When you have technical skills, you need entrepreneurial skills. So there has to be a connecting link between your entrepreneurship skills and your technical skills. How do you convert your technical skills into a business? That is the point. Because you see, I'm a fabricator. It's not about fabricating. It's about production of the kind of materials, the kind of products that are needed in industry. And we need vocational skills that are industry-driven. Some people are having vocational skills that don't have market in the country. So for me, I will always appeal that we should develop programs. We should not turn SME programs to constituency projects. With the greatest respect, we see SMEs projects becoming constituency projects. These are not well targeted because you have political capital, you attract an MSME program and go and invite the people in your village or the people that have political sympathy for you to say that you have trained. And then the statistics will be there that hundreds individuals or youth have been trained. How sustainable is that? How impactful is that? I think we need to go beyond policy to programming. That is that's my understanding of what the issues are. And let me stop for here.
All right, thank you. I think some of the the points you made actually touched on the classification or categorization put out by Professor Amechi when he talked about 3 categories of survivalists, scale and scope, and of course society allied type of businesses in Nigeria. But let's bring in Deborah. Deborah, you are development advocate of youth empowerment, and you just listened to Mahmouda, talk about the thinking of today's youth in this country. They want to make it fast. They want to make it fast, because of course they want to achieve what perhaps their peers have achieved without knowing how long it took their peers to be able to come up with that. But is there a focus when it comes to the youth? We have agricultural value chain, we have the ICT. Now, where are you advocating the youth to follow? Is it to just to go and have access to funds without knowing how to manage it? Mahmouda talked about the financial literacy, which is required technically for someone to run a good business.
Thank you very much for that question. But before I go into explaining or talking to the youth as to what they need to focus on, I just want us to draw back a little bit and refocus on the topic again, deepening the capacity of MSMEs. I want to just provide like a little bit of background as to what the drivers of economic development is in terms of when we even talk about these MSMEs. So we have, for example, the human resources, we have the capital resources, we have, of course, the technology and all of that. But speaking about the youth now, the truth of the matter is the enabling environment is there to an extent, but to an extent, it is not there. I must let you know that, yes, youths are accessing loans, the credits, they're accessing these funds, but sustaining that fund is a problem. That's because some of the factors, some of the indicators that they need to be able to thrive is not there. I'll give you an example. For example, power. You don't need 2 billion naira to be a successful business person in Nigeria, for example, if we're talking about MSMEs. But, for example, you start up with, let's say, 100,000, let's say 500,000, let's say 1 million. But you need power to sustain that business. How well is our power sector doing? How does it encourage people to even continue in business or for their business to thrive? You feel me? So, for example, you start up a business, you get the credit from the government, you start up the business, and it's moving well. But yes, you need to buy diesel, you need to buy fuel, you need, at the end of the day, the expenses most of the time outweighs what the profit is. And at the end of the day, people get discouraged. They say, oh, there's no profit in this business, and then it goes. And then that's also another thing that also makes the youth to fall into the category of survivalists. Sometimes you will see people really enthusiastic, oh, we have the ideas, we have this, we have that, and then they start up. Along the line, all of these expenses begin to come in, and then the youth becomes a survivalist because you begin to see primitive wealth accumulation coming in. You see people doubling the price of what they need to, the way they need to do their pricing. It becomes extremely expensive, and at the end of the day, we start exploiting each other. So power is a huge challenge. It is a problem, and this is an area that I think that the government needs to, I know the government is doing a lot. I must applaud the efforts. However, there is need to increase the focus on power, because it is one of the key, foundation, the bedrock of sustaining any business, in this country. Then back to the issue of what youths should really focus on. I'm not here to try and protect the interests of the youth, but I need to make reference also to the role that the educational sector has to play in this. There is need for a coordinated approach. There is need for more coordination between the different institutions of government and also back to the educational sector. Our fellow panelists, for example, made mention of people's integrity, for example. The Honorable Minister also made mention that some people, at the end of the day, they don't even have guarantors. You understand? And this calls for value reorientation in that, right from the primary schools, the secondary schools. What ideas are we putting in the minds of our young people? What do what aspirants, what kind of mindsets do we develop in our children? And these are some of the issues we need to look at, because the children of today are the youth of tomorrow. So there is need for value reorientation. Also, we are talking about enabling environment. Today in Nigeria, it is not news that insecurity is a talk of town. How does that promote the growth of MSMEs? I also want to make reference to the fact that we all know, even the president said it a few weeks ago, that there are no jobs in the country. What is the government doing to ensure that the fact that there are no jobs, how are we building the capacity of these young graduates that are coming out of school, of the youth corpus, for example? I'll tell you for free, the threat of Boko Haram is nothing to be compared with what we seem or we might have to face in the future. Because these young graduates are innovative, they are thinking, they are fast, they are smart.
And that's why they are being sucked into the MSME world.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so why would they be a threat?
There will be a threat because there is a problem of access to this. There is still a problem of access, whether you like it
Access
or not.
to what?
Access to the credits. There is still a problem of value orientation. There is still a problem of how they will appropriate these funds. And that's why I'm saying, in terms of deepening the capacity, in as much as, yes, we have these grown people out there already, we need, people are still in the university. There are still children coming up. We need to be able to start to tackle these issues from under.
All right. Thank you very much, Deborah, for your points there. Once again, let's bring in the Honorable Minister of State for MITI, Ambassador Miriam Katagum. You listen to the various views that have been expressed. I mean, the easiest part for me would be to say, look, respond to the core issues that each of the other guests has highlighted. In particular, I am often very concerned about philosophical underpinnings or the theoretical foundations. Professor Amaechi has given us, a leeway to say, look, what informs our drive towards growing or supporting the MSMEs? What are we targeting? What is that basic foundational conceptual idea that drives them? Is it just job creation, wealth creation, or what? Talked about the survivalists, talked about the scale of scoping, and then, of course, society-aligned entrepreneurs. That's one. Plus the issues raised by Mahmouda and then Deborah as well. So, Honorable Minister, you have the opportunity of responding to these key issues.
Yes, thank you very much. I would say that the key issue underlining our approach to the MSMEs would be economic diversification. And as you said, poverty reduction, wealth creation. Because by and large, for so long, we've relied on oil. And the only way, with Nigeria having almost 80% arable land not being utilized, we really have to look towards the agrarian side, agriculture, mining, as I said, creative industries, and so on and so forth. So really, that's the basic philosophy, to get them to diversify, earn incomes, not just for themselves, and also to improve their own self-esteem, because as she has pointed out, some of the challenges that the youth face in terms of self-fulfillment. And these, I think, some are the issues. Economic diversification, I would say. Now, the other issues that have been raised, I think I'm going to respond to them, not in any particular order. But she talked about power. Yes, structure, not just power, even roads, communications. These are all areas that affect the MSMEs. But a lot is being done in terms of conventional power. But also within the Economic Sustainability Plan, we have 25 million homes that are going to be provided with solar power. And for me, that is important because a lot of the micro enterprises practically operate from home or from a front shop just beside the home. So if we're able to get these solar power into the homes, a lot is going to change. Then to reduce costs, we have, in the past few years, started implementing what we call shared facilities. For example, yesterday during the award ceremony, the shared facility in Lagos, which is a partnership between the MSME clinics and the state government. The state government provided the structure, whereas with our partners, we're able to put up a fashion hub where we have nothing less than 25 different machines, embroidery machines, whipping machines, and so on and so forth, whereby MSMEs can just come in, pay a token, maybe 1,500, 2,000 naira, and use the machines that are there in that facility. We've also done a shared facility recently opened by His Excellency in Benue State, where we had to redo the whole yam market because we understand that's the largest yam market we have in the country. Now, if I go back quickly, in terms of program, the National Enterprise Development and Entrepreneurship Program, NEDEP, is the key program that we're using to address this issue because, as I said, ITF does skills, and they do a lot of skills, and it's not just the training. When ITF trains somebody in, what do they call it, industrial design or tailoring, at the end of the training, you get certification, and you get a starter pack. You get a sewing machine, you get a token amount that will enable you to start off the business. If you are trained in plumbing or solar installation, after the training, they give you a starter kit and a little bit of cash. So it's not that the training just goes like that. Then you have some, I forgot to mention, like Nexim Bank focuses on giving credit to these MSMEs. And in terms of education, now most universities have introduced an entrepreneurial course, which is compulsory for all students. And I think the polytechnics have also done the reverse to enable their graduates to have some kind of business skills. But also, as you mentioned, the NYSC. Each time you have the NYSC batches, you have training vocational skills. And I've seen quite a lot of graduates of the NYSC scheme taking off their career from those trainings that they received in camp. Then I also wanted to mention the issue of trade facilitation, because where AFCFTA has taken off. So we need to get these MSMEs to understand the rubrics of access to the market. How do they need to ensure the quality of their products? How do they ensure, how do they understand how to export, how to package? What are the standards that they must keep? How do they get their NAFDAC registration or whatever approvals or certification they need from the standards organization? So these are some of the issues that, you know, we try as much as possible to help the MSMEs. And for the women, let me say that when we started off the Survival Fund, Mr. President himself directed that 45% of the funds should be allocated to female-owned enterprises who are qualified. And we've received a lot of responses from the females. But there are also cases, for example, Jais Bank, that does this financial inclusion thing, only giving some funds, I think between 200,000 and 2 million, only to women. And then they teach them how to open an account, how to save the money, and they do this profit sharing system. And the information we have is almost 99% of the women refund or return the money. So women are good for doing business. They actually pay back their credit.
Right.
So that will enable them access more credit.
All right, Honorable Minister, we're actually running out of time, but we just hope that the other guests could have some 1 minute to, give us a final thought, on this particular topic. Now, let's return to Professor Kenneth Amaechi via Zoom in the UK. You've listened to other guests, and I'd like you to come in from the point of view of 3 key issues you mentioned earlier on: knowledge-based, management skills, quality of education. How would you prefer solution to MSME's growth in Nigeria from your own perspective?
Thank you very much. I think listening to Honorable Minister and others, I'm very much encouraged. I think one thing I would like to see institutionalized is management support to the SMEs. So here I'm looking at having business advisory services that are targeted at SMEs. Like I mentioned earlier on, one of the challenges they have is access to quality management. And the other colleagues have already mentioned that. So it's not just about money. I like the idea of the 3 C's: the credit, the collateral, so let me get it, collateral, the competence, the competence and the other C that I've forgotten now. So those are critical. And the minister also talked about universities. I've tried to do some work with the NUC, National University Commission, on the concept of Afri-capitalism. So Tony Elumelu and his colleagues have been pushing that idea of Afri-capitalism. How can we get the universities much more engaged? There's a difference between the theoretical part of it and also the practical bit. Our universities are poor at commercialization of ideas. So if they are poor at the commercialization of ideas, how then do we expect them to build this entrepreneurial culture that we want to see? So I'm thinking of a holistic approach to this, a systemic approach to it, whereby we are looking at different parts of the jigsaw to ensure that they are all aligned to support the kind of diversification philosophy we want to achieve as a country.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Amaechi there. Unfortunately, we are pressed for time. We do have a second topic to discuss today. Otherwise, it would have been very nice to drill into some other aspects that you raised. But very quickly, and this is going to Christian Mahmouda. It appears to me at this moment that when the history of MSMEs in Nigeria gets to be written, what we have seen over the years and right up to this moment could be the very early beginnings. Now, isn't it ultimately the way to go to say that away from encouraging fashion business that supply individual needs, I need to get a new outfit, I go to meet my dressmaker, or a lady, goes to meet her dressmaker and so on and so forth, that there will ultimately be linkages between MSMEs and then the big contractors, so that they act as subcontractors to them, especially when we're talking about local content. If you're a fabricator, what do you need to fabricate? Where does the big business get its own supplies from? So that way you are having real clusters, you are having real shared facilities, and therefore you begin to capitalize and increase the volume of your transactions. Of course, that will also come with knowledge, management skills, and so on and so forth. We appear not to have graduated to that level just yet, but it's something to think about. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you are right in what you have said, and I also think that the federal government, to be fair to it, the federal government is also trying to create market access in terms of linkages for the MSME to bigger firms. But like I've said, there's a need for us to retweak the kind of skills that the MSMEs have, because the big companies require some specific kind of industrial skills. So if we must move just beyond vocational skills to industrial skills, I can have a vocational skills, and then I can complement it with an industrial skills, which a particular sector or which a particular multinational company desires. With that, then we can be creating the real access to market, because buyers have needs, just like consumers have needs. A buyer doesn't buy anything that just because he wants to buy. So I think that there's a need to also look at the curriculum of training. Maybe just to also say that there are two basic things, and we seem to be emphasizing one over the other. Even in the national policy for MSME, 15 items have been discovered as the internal needs of the SMEs. So sometimes, also from my training as a trainer on entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs are created to solve problems, to survive problems. So when we expect that government can solve all the problems, then we will fail. We will not be entrepreneurs. But what I believe that we should also be emphasizing is that the entrepreneurs must have internal skills. Just like we see in the computer, you have the software and the hardware. It is the software that drives the hardware. So if the internal skills of the entrepreneurs to run and manage their business is not there,
Chris,
they will not get it.
Chris Mahmoud, actually, Kingsley, I just hope we'll have time in the future
to return to this
particular topic, because it's very germane to the survival of that subsector of the nation's economy, that's the MSMEs. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to draw the curtain on this particular segment of our conversation this morning. We'd like to appreciate you for being here this morning. First of all, Honorable Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Uwaji Mariam Katagun. Thank you indeed for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Chris John Mamuda, Business Development Service Provider, member, Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Scale Enterprises. It's been a wonderful talking to you this morning.
Thank you.
And Deborah Oguche Ike, you didn't have time to do your roundup, but then I can assure you that next time around, we'll re-invite you for this particular conversation. Thank you indeed for being here this morning. You raised a number of very good points. All right. And Professor Kenneth Amechi, Professor of Sustainable Business, University of Edinburgh, UK. Thank you indeed for sharing your thoughts and your time with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. You are watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we're going to be dealing with the second topic for conversation on the program this morning, which is war against drug abuse. Don't go away.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Mommy is ready to receive me a bundle of joy. Mommy is making my home cleaner and safer. We are Dettol sure.
Illnesses can happen at home too. That's why Dettol and me together will make my baby's home safe and to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why moms want to be Dettol. Dettol Sure.
We are Dettol sure.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth Entrepreneurship Support Years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youth, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
It's the dawn of a new era on NTA's flagship program, The Sports Parliament, revitalized with lots of varieties, including feedback responses from viewers. Sports Parliament, the weekly sports show that exposes all the intrigues in the Nigerian sports sector and projects an agenda on the way forward for Nigerian sports. On NTA every Thursday at 10:30 p.m., running for 1 whole hour, discussing sports. The parliamentarians are more committed than ever to enlighten the viewers as the Sports Parliament takes it to a whole new level on the floor of the House. Keep a date with the Sports Parliament as motions are moved every Thursday on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, with his gavel to harmonize sports resolutions. The House have it.
The much anticipated UEFA Euro 2021 is finally here. Can Portugal defend the title they won 4 years ago as they face world champions France, Europe giants Germany, Spain, Italy and England? Catch all the action via live transmission, in-depth studio analysis, fixtures, results, updates, and lots more on NTA, Africa's largest TV network. For sponsorship and advert placement, contact Bola on 080-37044286 or Idris on 080-34-633-644. This broadcast is proudly brought to you by NTA in partnership with Media Business Solutions, MBS Sports.
All right, it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We have a second conversation which borders on the war against drug abuse.
Now, it isn't just about a slogan, as President Muhammadu Buhari, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, over the weekend launched the War Against Drug Abuse, which is a roadmap detailing how the menace of illegal drug use and trafficking will be tackled in Nigeria.
The president, in his speech, which was widely published, noted that drug abuse and illicit drug trafficking pose greater danger than insurgency and banditry because they serve as catalysts for all forms of criminality and insecurity challenges that bedevil the country.
Right. Now, joining us to discuss this topic, would like to welcome the former Director General of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Otumba Lanre Epemisho. Otumba, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria after a while.
Good morning, Nigerians. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is Chuks Akamodo, who is President, Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian youth. Chris, delighted to have you this morning.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen. Yeah, Otumba, give us an idea of the level of drug abuse in the country today. We understand that since the coming of General Marwa, as the head of NDLEA, a lot of progress, has been made with respect to arresting drug users and, of course, arresting drug users and, of course, picking up drugs from different parts of the country at the airports and what have you. So what is your view of drug abuse in the country today?
Thank you very much, NTA, for your massive contribution towards this war against drug abuse, which you started long ago. Marwa's role is to enhance synergy between all the stakeholders to ensure that this battle is won. NDLEA has tried all the seizures on the streets, but the users are increasing. So when he came in, he decided to focus on drug demand reduction. Drug demand reduction. Fighting drug, there are two-pronged approaches: the supply and the demand. On the demand side, we haven't been able to achieve much. That is why the supply is increasing. I asked a question in Indonesia when somebody was asking me, your people bring drug here? I said, why didn't they bring pure water here? Because you will not buy. So your people bring drug here, they spoil our country. Does your law not ask you not to take drugs? Does your law permit you to take drugs? No. So it's not about building gaps or creating gaps and trying to grandstand. It's behavioral. It's behavioral, it's universal. It's not about whether he's poor, it's not about whether he's rich. It's behavioral, and this is the approach that may help to kill this drug business. It's difficult, I'm sure you know, which means we need to build it from the lowest. 3 years, don't wait at all, because these children appear to grow faster than when we were growing up. They have brain of like 10 when they are only 4. I think so. That's my, as a grandfather, that's my observation now, the kind of questions they ask. So we should follow them like that. Number one. Number two, parents should please get closer to their children. Things are a little bit difficult. Their minds are all over the place after little things that pains them a lot. Somebody lost his phone, he will almost commit suicide. Get close to them. Let them know how useless these things can be. We're living and we're happy without these things. These things that drive you, that you say because you lose your phone, you can't sleep, you start taking drugs. So if we are able to understand that it's all embracing in the sense that look for what is causing it in your own house. I'll look for, maybe a child feels you maltreat the mother, maybe in a polygamous home. My father is not treating my mom well. I've interviewed children, I hear all sorts of things. Those things that we ignore, knit them together. Be in charge of your house as a father. Be in charge. Don't look for excuses for failure. The first thing, if your child takes drugs, is, I think I'm at fault. Maybe I didn't do enough. Not you just go and meet the mother and say, I told you, you're a career woman, carry bag all the time, you say you are working. No, it will not help. You are creating more problems for yourself. This is my problem. I need to figure it out, how to approach it. I have examples of successful parents who have gone this way. But mommy, I think the way it is now, you have to leave this job. Let me work it out. Oh yeah, let's face it. And they were able to bring these boys out of drugs. And today they are a happier family. They even tell their stories as functions. So I believe that this approach of General Marwa now, of saying that let's create a train, WADA. Let everybody please come on board. Traditional rulers are not afraid of elections like this other. So they are a little more stable. It's a be the custodian at the community level. So that the police, the headmaster, the pastor, the imam, everybody, once in a while, they come together and discuss their community. They know who is taking, who is selling. They know who is buying. And they know how to encourage the people that want to get out of the drug thing. Ah, you are trying, my son. I've seen a lot of improvement on you. Oh, wonderful. Rather than the society casting him out. Because you can't kill him. Using drug does not have a death penalty. So he has to be around. So the better you warm up to him, and that is what helps.
Okay. Otumba Lanre Pimisho, thank you very much there for your opening comments. I was just wondering, the war against drug abuse, it looks like it has the acronym WADA.
WADA.
Well, you know, there's also a very well-known WADA. That's the World Anti-Doping Agency. That has to do with sports and so on and so forth. So that it's not mistaken for the World Anti-Doping Agency. Maybe you may, that's the, those who Christians may wish to find.
You are very correct. But you can be sure that this is our own calamity now. It will overshadow the one you are The one.
Well, I'm just talking about the nomenclature.
Yeah.
That's to say the acronym.
That is
if you say
correct.
this is WADA, because okay, Olympics is coming. This is about taking steroids to be a high performer.
Okay.
But we're talking about mind-bending drugs amongst the population in Nigeria. And Chris Akamodu, I want to bring you in here. Chooks Akamodu, I want to bring you in here with regard to the drug demand reduction. I mean, Larry Ekwemichel says, quite honestly, that this is one that we are not winning. Why are we on the losing side at the moment, and what can we do to get back to winning ways in terms of getting a reduction in drug demand?
Thank you so very much. Firstly, I think that the Nigerian populace are yet to appreciate the enormity of the problem we have on our hands. Quite frankly, I think that the problem on our hands is beyond government agencies that are statutorily charged with the responsibility of law enforcement. NDLEA alone cannot do it. NAFDAC cannot do it. Even with the support of security agencies, that won't cut it for us. Law enforcement, yes, beautiful. But it's just one pillar of that struggle. We need massive public enlightenment. More than anything else, we must find ingenious ways of enlisting the young people of Nigeria and getting them to take ownership of this war against drug abuse. Truth is that the young people we have at present are such that when elders speak to them, you don't actually communicate. They turn deaf ears to whatever you're saying. So there's a communication gap. This we need to realize. It takes young people to communicate with fellow young people. Oftentimes, when people in authority are telling them the dangers of drug abuse, they don't hear it. You're merely talking at them. You need people who will talk with them. We need feedback so that we can actually get to the root of this problem and then proffer realistic solutions to them. I'll give you an instance. Thankfully, this year's theme of International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking happens to be, and I quote, "Share facts on drug, save lives." And what are the facts? Now, the facts are that drug abuse does not go to the individual. Drug abuse impairs the memory of the abuser, the user of the substance. Drug abuse makes the user susceptible to cardiovascular diseases. Drug abuse could lead to stroke. Drug abuse eventually wrecks your finances and wrecks your well-being, physical well-being as a person. These are the facts. But the question is,
drug abuse wrecks society ultimately.
Of course, it compromises national security. And of course, it also lowers productivity at the work level. So if you look at it holistically, you find that drug abuse only does evil. But the question now is, good message. These are facts that we try to share. Who is conveying this message? If the right people are not conveying this message, well, you will be talking to yourself. It's monologue. So we really need dialogue, because unless and until we get to a point where Nigerians begin to realize that we have all suddenly become critical stakeholders in this war against drug abuse and begin to take responsibility, we'll continue to think that, oh, NDLEA is the cure-it-all. It's not the cure-it-all. General Buba Marwa is doing fantastically well as the new czar of NDLEA. But the best he can do is what he's doing, unless and until there's the buy-in. And then the requisite critical mass is mobilized to play a complementary role. I'm afraid we might just be running in circles.
That is true, but I think the NDLEA has to also lead, as the agency is statutorily responsible for that. Let's be specific, gentlemen. We have cannabis, which is grown everywhere in this country. To stamp that out will be a lot difficult. Perhaps you give us an idea of how that can happen, because it's natural weed that grows. Now, heroin, cocaine, those ones perhaps are not made in Nigeria. But Nigeria has also become a transit point for those substances like cocaine and heroin. Of course, the record we have since Marwa came on board is that many have been intercepted at the airport and what have you. Now, I don't know the demand of such substance, cocaine and heroin in Nigeria. How do you assess such demands of heroin and cocaine? But when it comes to cannabis, it is grown here. All right. And if we are going to tackle it from the point of cannabis, which is the most common one in Nigeria, how should the NDLEA or any other institution, be able to address that, knowing full well
to bring him